So at the Small Business Administration, we're the Washington Metropolitan Area District Office. Sheree Mack and myself, Eva Nye, and Tanya Smith, who are all here this morning in support of this event. Our focus is on helping entrepreneurs and existing small businesses develop and grow and sustain good, strong businesses that are able to grow, be prosperous, make money, and also help create jobs and stabilize job opportunities for persons in and around this community. So we're focused on expanding and developing partnerships with organizations and entities that can help us successfully support the small business community, which is important. But we also encourage entrepreneurs to take advantage of the full suite of learning opportunities that we have through the Small Business Administration and our partners, whether it's through the Small Business Development Centers, whether it's through our SCORE operation, our Women's Business Center, connecting with our Procurement Technical Assistance Partnership, or our International Trade U.S. Export Assistance Center programs. All of these are designed to help improve the level of knowledge a business owner has around managing, growing, and succeeding in their business. So if you are interested in any of those topics, feel free to always reach us through sba.gov /DC. You'll see a calendar of events and opportunities that we have that we're sharing things with other people. And you'll also be able to see many online resources that can be beneficial to you and links to information that will be helpful in sharing with you some of the tools and resources that we have available. So I'm excited about this morning's opportunity for you to have access to some good information, and I wish you all the best in today and your business endeavors. Thank you.
So I am your self-appointed Jobs Act navigator. I'm going to help to break down for you what the rules and regulations tell you you can do, because it's instrumental in you raising capital. It's a very heavy area because it is talking about securities. And so while via the Jobs Act there are 6 provisions in it, I'm really only going to speak about 3 of them, because it's those 3 provisions that will make sense for you. And again, when I frame the information, I'll then ask Casey if he can speak to how investors look at that. It's one thing you knowing what you can go out there to see. It's another thing understanding if anybody's going to be on the other side of that that's willing to listen. Okay? So we're hoping that you'll be able to walk out of here today with some sense of, some thoughts of what you can do. The presentation that's going around is going to follow what I have up here, so you're not losing any time or energy and waiting to get the document. And I'm hoping you're going to keep looking at me when you get it and not the document. We'll see what happens there. Okay. So again, Jobs Act of 2012. What is it? Jobs Act stands for Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act of 2012. It passed legislation in April of 2012, but it was left for the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, to then approve it and put it in place for it to be implemented. What is it? When you're in business, there are a couple ways to bring in capital. What are the couple of ways? Either you go the traditional route where you're bringing in debt capital, i.e. loans, things that you're already used to, or on the other side of the fence, it's a matter of finding investors and you're selling equity. Now the equity, it could be debt or investment, but the point is the 2 ways are a loan or an investment. Everything we're going to talk about today is on the investment side, okay? There were always rules and regulations in place that allowed you as a small business to raise capital and raise capital directly. What were those? By a show of hands, can you guys help me to understand who knows what a private placement is? Okay, we got a few private placements. Private placement is strictly when you go into business, generally what you guys know is you put together a business plan and you run around to anybody that'll listen to you with your business plan. Half of you want to go stand in front of people to tell them what you want to do, and you think you can get away with not even doing the business plan. But the business plan is the document that you're used to going to people to find out if they'll give you money. And if you go into a bank, if you go into the SBA, they still want to see your business plan, especially if you're a startup. Even if you're an existing business, they want to see it. I want to just segue, Casey, can you speak to how investors view business plans?
So the most important thing that we see with the business plan, this is going to be the point I really speak to the whole time, is friction. So as an investor, we see thousands of startups, thousands of companies every year, and all of them are looking for money. So what is the best way to attract outside investment is to make the investor's job really easy. So with a business plan, the key is to make it obvious and simple. You know, we're very busy people, you're very busy people. The business plan is the most concise version, the most concise way for you to convey what you're planning on doing now and what you're planning on doing in the future and how you're going to grow your business. So as an investor, the business plan is critical for the company, really as a roadmap of what they're going to do, and as an investor to see very quickly the plan for the company.
How much time are you going to spend in figuring out what someone is trying to do when you pull a business plan?
So if I have to figure out the business plan, it's going right into the trash can. It's one of those things where if the person's business plan is not concise and not clear, it's my interpretation that they don't have a clear idea of where they're going or what they're doing, which might be the case at that time. So a lot of times we actually will say, look, you know, this isn't ready. Come back to us when you have a better plan. So again, it's very critical, that first impression. You know, it's, if you can get around and you know you get a second look, that's always a good thing. And once you build a relationship, a lot of times with the investment community, they'll spend a lot more time. But if it's a new introduction, if it's a new interaction, if the business plan isn't clear and concise, it's really a non-starter.
Why did I want to take this moment to talk about a business plan first? Because your business plan is the basis for anything you're trying to do when it comes to raising capital. We hear it so much that people sort of take it as, yeah, I got a business plan. No, you have to do the business plan, okay? So I wanted to go into that first because almost any vehicle we talk about is still going to start from your business plan. I asked how many people know what a private placement is. The reason I ask that is the business plan is the vehicle, the tool that you use on the ground to help people understand what you're doing, what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it. The private placement, and then they call it a private placement memorandum, that is then the document that you use that regulatory-wise, you are now in the legal place you need to be to raise capital a particular way. There are different versions of private placements, but you need to understand that the private placement is basically the business plan in regulatory format. So if you're going to go after certain capital, a private placement document, which is called a private placement memo, is what's necessary. So there has always been a regulation that allows you as a small business to raise capital directly yourself, because now I'm going into sizing these regulations for small business. Generally, these regulations are used by companies that are high growth companies. And again, Casey, I would ask you, even companies that you guys will look at to consider, what space are they in?
So we focus primarily in the tech industry. So that means once they have a software or a solution to sell, the growth can be infinite. In a lot of cases, most companies are a lot of companies are service companies where they will have a contract where hours are just that, they're billable hours. They're based on people's time. So the only way to grow a company of that nature, you actually have to have more people spending more time. So there's a problem and a benefit of both scenarios. With a technology company, the time is not the limiting factor. Let's say, for instance, with Facebook, pretty much as many people can join Facebook, and they don't have to spend a direct number of hours trying to get those people online. As more people sign up, the same number of employees at Facebook can continue to work. Whereas, let's say, an architecture firm, if I want to grow from designing 2 buildings to 10 buildings, I'm going to need a lot more manpower. So for us, we focus on investing in technology companies where the rate that they can grow is much faster, and from our perspective, the value of our invested capital can increase faster. So it's very clear to do 2 things. One, determine what you're trying to raise money for. If you're a services business, you need to raise money from people, so this private placement, you need to find people who are looking to invest in the type of business that you run. So with services, you want to find people looking for a services investment, and for technology, you need to find technology investors. And there is a very different risk profile to the 2.
Now, when you're ready to find investors, you gotta look for investors that like what you're doing. So I'll go back to the business plan. People put together a business plan and start sending it out to the universe. Well, you're wasting your time, money, and energy because you've already heard on the other side of the fence when it comes in what they do with it. I used to run an investment banking firm. I probably got an average of 25 business plans a week. So imagine how many of them I really read. Right? But when I did sit down to read them, it was very easy. You flip, every person that reviews these documents have their own way of what they're going to look at. Some people look at the financials first, some will look at the marketing first, different things. But I would go to my area that made sense for me, and if from the beginning it didn't do anything, that stayed on the pile that you never looked at. And so on your side of the fence, you need to understand that. You gotta make whatever you're sending in compelling enough that someone wants to pay attention to it. But you also have to send it to people that are in that space. Why would you send a business plan for an architectural firm to a company that you can easily look online and see what their appetite is? They do technology. So get very specific in who you're looking for, why you're looking for them. So those 2 points, your business plan and who to market to, are instrumental, again, when you go back to what vehicles are you going to use. So I'll pull back again. The Jobs Act lowered the bar in certain places for vehicles that have always been available, but because of what they did, they made it more accessible for small businesses to go after capital. So, the Jobs Act lowered the bar on general solicitation. Now those same small businesses that want to raise capital now can actually do it because they can do general solicitation to find the investors that they need, which they could not do before. Does that make sense? I love those nodding heads. So, via the Jobs Act, those are the 6 provisions that are in the Jobs Act. And again, I'm really only going to talk about Title 2, 3, and 4. So let's get crowdfunding out of the way. And I know what's going to happen here. Give me an idea in the room. How many people have heard of crowdfunding? Okay. I knew. And see, what happens with the Jobs Act is all of a sudden everybody thinks that the Jobs Act was the crowdfunding regulation. Well, guys, out of the Jobs Act, one of the provisions, the provision that makes a difference for each one of you is the only one that really has passed so far. And that is the one that you're seeing that says Title II. Title II is the one I just spoke to you about. The regulation that always existed was this is a long thing, it's called a Reg D 506, is what the traditional vehicle was. When they passed the Jobs Act, they left that regulation, that's the one I already told you, you could always do, but you couldn't do any general solicitation. Via the Jobs Act, they created Reg D 506B, which is still the old one, and now they have a 506C. The 506C is the one in this provision that now you can do the general solicitation. But crowdfunding, which is Title III, crowdfunding via the federal government, the SEC, still is not legal. Additionally, there's another regulation which is called Reg A, or Regulation A. Reg A, again, always on the books, still on the books. Reg A allows you to raise a maximum of $5 million annually, and you can sell to, and I'm getting a little bit of trouble here right now, you can sell to accredited or unaccredited investors. And we'll get to that a little bit later, okay? That also, so the adjustments they're doing on the Jobs Act also are not in place yet on Reg A. So all of the stuff you're hearing about crowdfunding, it's still what has always existed. Those are platforms, again, that you can raise some capital via reward-based or donation-based, not equity-based, okay? So spending time understanding what's available to you right now, where it makes sense, is understanding what a Reg D 506C can do for you. So I like to understand how investors view crowdfunding, how they view private placements, how they view Reg A offerings. Is there a sweet spot? Like, what are the thoughts in that respect?
As an investor, again, I want to invest in the most efficient and easy company I can. So if a company is raising, let's say, $1 million, and they're looking to raise it from 500 investors, I don't really want to be a part of a group of 500 people all giving my opinion to one person on a project. On the other hand, if I have a product, and so for us, we look at investing in enterprise companies. Enterprise companies are companies that sell to other businesses. So, for instance, Microsoft is one of the biggest enterprise companies. They sell to some of the largest companies in the world. They also have a consumer side. So for now, we'll ignore that. A better example probably is Salesforce. Salesforce only sells to businesses. They provide CRM software to businesses. With a company like Salesforce, you don't want to have a lot of investors. And the reason is, the more investors you have, the more headaches you have. If any of you have dealt with anybody who has given them money, so if someone gives you money, it changes the relationship, number one. That's a different problem. But number two, it creates a dynamic that's different. You know, they have this expectation that they're going to get paid back. They have an expectation that their opinion is now more valuable. It changes the expectations. So now if you're doing crowdfunding and you raise from 500 people, you have 500 people who think their opinion is more valuable, and they have an expectation that you'll pick up the phone more often. So the key is to find the type of fundraising instrument that works best for your company. If I have a company that I'm going to be selling to every consumer in the United States, there is value in having 500 investors. Those 500 investors are going to tell their friends, hey, look, I invested in this really cool social company, and now you should try it. And they'll tell their friends. So now, from 500 people, you're going to have, if they each tell 2 people, you'll have 1,500 people who are talking about your company. So, in that scenario, having more investors is valuable. For a company, let's go back to more what we do, where we invest in maybe a group of 5 people working on selling a software to businesses. They need to be focused, going from business to business, trying to sell their product. They should be raising money from people who can introduce them to their customers. So for instance, let's say I'm raising $1 million and I raise it from 5 people. I want those, and let's go back to the tire examples. I want to raise money from a wheel distributor and a real estate person and a maybe rubber manufacturer. All these different people, these like 5 people who are very industry specific, can give me the best contacts to go reach out and try to open my other tire dealerships. They can probably give me a discount on my material costs, and at the very least, they may know other people in other cities who have sold and started tire businesses. So the key is to find the group of people, or find the type of financing instrument that will most benefit what you're trying to do, and then fill that financing round with people who will help your business the most. So again, I spoke about Kickstarter being a marketing and advertising platform. If you put your product, let's say you sell a watch, you put your watch on Kickstarter with some special watch, and 1,000 people or 10,000 people buy it. As an investor, I know that 10,000 people want the product you have. It's a lot better than you coming to me and saying, I think I can get 10,000 people to buy my watch. So again, it's a marketing and advertising way to show, but it's not the actual fundraising for the company instrument.
And I'd like you guys to understand that, because as much as you hear about crowdfunding and you hear about the successful ones, when you pull back and look at the statistics and the numbers, the average amount of money companies are raising in doing them is about $7,000. So you have your huge successes, you have your absolute losers, but in between, it's an average of about $7,000. So the time, energy, and expense that you're going to pay in doing a campaign, know why you're doing it before you step into it, okay? And so earlier I mentioned accredited investors or unaccredited investors. When you're looking at these provisions that you can use via security regulations, again, you have to know who your audience is. Are you surrounded by, or do you have a marketing program in your head that's going to allow you to reach enough accredited investors to use one of the vehicles to allow you to do that? But let me, by show of hands, how many people know what an accredited investor is? I've got to raise my hand. Okay. Accredited investors is all financial metrics. An accredited investor is someone who makes $200,000 a year, have done that for the past 2 years, will do that for, the next 2-3 years. Or if it's a couple, that's $300,000 annually. Or they have a net worth of $1 million, which does not include their residence. Or there's about 5 or 6 other categories that you fit in, but those then start leaning more toward if it's a business or someone that is more sophisticated in the financial space. So if you have access to or a really strong marketing program in your head to try to find not only accredited investors, but strategically find the ones the same way we're talking about, make sure they fit what you're trying to do, then you can use one of the vehicles that are available for accredited investors to buy. But if your circle, or what you're trying to do you don't think you'd be successful in reaching accredited investors, then everybody else that I didn't mention in those financials fall into unaccredited investors, okay? And if that's the case, then there is a different way. You have to figure out how to create your database of potential investors, and it does have a lot to do with what you do long before you start asking for money. In all of these security regulations, when we're referencing unaccredited investors, you're in good shape if you have a pre-existing relationship with them. So the point to stay within regulatory compliance is to do things to help you build a database of potential investors long before you start asking people for money. So there's ways and processes. I already told you, I could get lost in talking to you about processes and procedures, but there's ways to do it, so you build a database that way.
So when you first start, you have an idea, you have maybe a pilot program, a pilot product. You might have something very small to show your customer or an investor. At that stage, you're looking for a seed investment. Usually, someone will go to their friends and their family and ask for money. Say, I have the next best thing to ever come about. Please give me a little bit of money. And with that money, hopefully they give you something. With that money, you build the product and then go sell. It doesn't have to be the finished product. It can be a piece of the product. You need to have something to show and go sell, and again, prove traction. Once you have traction, you can then go to people who are going to give you more than give you money more than because they love you. You know, your friends and family. I love you. Here's some money. Maybe I hate you. Here's some money. Go away. Once you get past that group of people, you need to actually have a product and traction to show how you're going to scale your business. So the key there is to really go and do it, to show what you're going to do in practice. And at that stage, you're really looking to do a seed round. And a seed round is from angel investors, or there are a number of venture funds that will invest in seed rounds. And what an angel investor is a large net worth individual or a group of large net worth individuals looking for very early companies to help them both with mentoring and with capital to grow. The next stage after the seed round is either an A round, a Series A round, which is really the most, it's the first formal round. Locally, there's a lot of venture capital funds that do a lot of Series A investment. We do Series A investment where a company will raise between about $1.5 million to $5 million. And at that stage, they really have a product, a team, and customers to then scale it in some way. So there's a lot of traction that you need to show at each level. And by traction, the investor is really looking to see that risk was reduced. Everything is about risk. So at each level, the more the risk was reduced, the better or the safer the investment is. So those are really the beginning of the financing, and then later on there's a lot more fun on the other side of the investment spectrum.
Okay, so that's, you raise capital in tranches. So, just what he said, you need $500,000 to complete your packaging, to, have your facility ready, to hire that first person or two that's going to help you move the enterprise forward. Then you do your next one. How does that translate into these vehicles? Almost all of the regulatory vehicles are set that you can raise a certain amount of money, and those charts that's in the books that you have tell you for each vehicle what the maximum is. For instance, under a Reg D 504, you can raise a maximum of $1 million annually. Under 505, raise $5 million annually. Under a 506, you can raise an unlimited amount of money annually. So when you're working through your business plan, you're understanding what you have to do, when you have to do, how you have to do it. These are then the vehicles that can help you. And the reason you need the vehicle, sometimes with investors, if you're dealing one-on-one, again, you have a pre-existing relationship, you don't always require any kind of vehicle, correct? But if you're stepping out and you don't know people, you want to find them, you can't go market to sell your securities if you're not using a regulatory required vehicle. Okay? In other words, you can't just go out marketing your business plan to sell equity in your company. and assume that you won't get a visit by either the state security board that you live in or the Securities and Exchange Commission. Okay, so know what the rules and regulations are when you want to step out there raising capital.
It was very informative. I'm glad to know that there is a starting point for people to start getting investors and being involved and knowing what type of investors they are. Learning about being accredited or unaccredited and how those investors affect your company and overall your ability to gain investors is important. I felt like it was very informative. I enjoyed it.
It is like taking a 4 months investment bank course in 1 hour. So it's a good time investment.
I think it was a great seminar, and I have a small business, so we've thought about looking at investment opportunities. It's really very helpful session. Yeah.
I thought it was very, very informative, especially for a person who is just starting a business, and then they have the resources available for the business. So I thought it was a very good program, very excellent presentation as well. All right.
I second what Mr. Freeman just stated. I also think that this should be an ongoing process, probably monthly. You come in with a lot of, from what I can see, a lot of beginners, so that they can really get educated on this. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was right on point.